Hello everyone and welcome back to the Angels franchise. In today's episode, we are going to kick it off by doing that first year player draft. We're going to sim these games really quick and we're going to get into that draft and start filling out the future for this Angels roster. We're also going to sim to the end of the month of July, get through the All-Star break, and probably do that mini blow up I was talking about in the last episode, as well as getting to see how well we drafted. So that'll all happen just in this episode. Guys, I am possibly looking to trade during this mini blow up. Possibly Yusei Kikuchi. He is seeing a little bit of regression due to the lower potential than his overall, and a contending team could maybe use him in their rotation, and I bet we could get a pretty decent prospect back for him. Although his recent performances aren't exactly helping his case, as he has been one of the worst pitchers in baseball over the last month. We might even look to trade Taylor Ward. He's playing really well for us. I think that his trade stock has absolutely increased this season. Could probably get a nice player for him potentially. I was hoping we would have Trout back before I have to trade Soler, so we might wait until a little bit later, and we may even keep Soler. He's actually improving. I'm liking how he's playing. The big issue is that I want him and Trout to be the DH, which just doesn't really track. We're probably going to deal Kenley. I know he's been playing well for us. In fact, he's been playing incredible, almost having a little bit of a career year here in LA. But if we're doing a mini blow up, that means that he is a prime candidate to trade away. And we may also look to trade Yohan Moncada, as he is also playing relatively well and could help out a contender. But anyway, enough of that garbage. It's time to do the MLB draft. And what do you know? Mike Trout is no longer injured before we even get to that draft. I'll place him on the bench for now. But the Angels just went on a huge losing streak, 9 total in a row before getting a win against Arizona, including a 0-4 sweep where we scored 4 total runs in a 4-game set versus Texas. The offense is struggling, the pitching is struggling, the Angels are struggling. So here's the prospects we're interested in. I am skeptical of Todd Dennison. The numbers just do not read that good to me as a bat to have jumped all the way up to our #1 prospect. Something about it feels wrong. He of course will still be added to the draft queue because we might want him. Kevin Vasquez is interesting. Ben Carmona is my favorite. If he is available at 2, he will be taken. He is the easiest hit I have ever seen. Robert Gonzalez might honestly be my pick instead at #2 if Carmona is not available, as weird as that is. Sergio Castillo, he is slipping down the board as well. The fact that he went from draft rank 1 down to our draft rank 6 and just kind of kept sliding the more we found good players makes me think that he probably does not have that great of potential, but he can be in consideration. I'm not going to pin him though for now. James Ingebrigtsen is potentially our 2nd round pick, maybe later if we can hold off even further. I think Rob Carpenter could also be a great 3rd round or later pick, being that he is not ranked on the MLB board. I am personally a big fan of Dave Williams. I think he is another surefire pick. Could potentially take him in the 2nd round. Though I think this man is my favorite for the 2nd round. Mark Humphreys, 18, 6'5" lefty, and he jumped way up our board. By the way, in case you didn't see it, Mike Jones, who is the injured outfielder, 90 to 97 potential for him. It's concerning that he's injured, and it means that the durability rating is probably pretty bad, but how can you pass up on 90 to 97 potential near the end of a draft? Christopher Edney is also maybe draftable. He's so weird though, because he's going to have a higher overall than his potential most likely, and will be good immediately, but then we'll just start regressing, which is odd. Anyway, we've got most of our prospects on the board. After this year, I have learned that I need to do a little bit better of a job in the later rounds. I think we're going to be hurting for potential prospects late, but a lot of the time you can just draft for potential near the bottom anyway, and it'll end up working out. But if he is available at #2, Ben Carmona will be the pick. So it's just a matter of what the Nationals do. Let's get this draft underway. So the Nationals, with the first overall selection, will take Ben Carmona. And I really kind of thought this was going to happen. I think he was easily the best pitcher available at the top of this draft. Good starting overall, good potential, and he's 20 with room to grow. So I kind of saw this coming. I figured the Nats were going to end up taking Ben. So now it's a matter of where we want to go. And my leans initially, I'm scared of Dennison, plus I think he'll be available in this 2nd. Vasquez, I think, is a potentially pretty good pick here. 21 years old, center fielder with elite speed, and fielding. It's what I like in a center fielder. Not that outfield is particularly that big of a need. So a lot of times though, it's just best available if your guy isn't available. I like Robert Gonzalez potentially. I didn't scout him as much as maybe I wanted to, but I'm hoping that potential is on the higher end. A lot of times it is for the younger guys. And past that, I think those are really the only two I'm considering taking here. So it's just a matter of if we go center fielder with Kevin Vasquez or if we go pitcher with Robert Gonzalez. I feel like the choice is pretty obvious here. It feels like it's Kevin Vasquez, 84 to 94 potential, high starting overall, elite fielder with good speed. I love having that out in center field. Kevin Vasquez will be the first pick in the Angels franchise. Please don't let me down. Welcome to the team, Kevin Vasquez. And now the third overall pick, which I believe was the Rockies, they select Sergio Castillo. No, excuse me, it's the Mariners, and they select Sergio Castillo. I don't think he's a terrible pick. I just don't think he was best available at number 2. So now we sit around and we wait and we see what teams end up taking. And there goes Robert Gonzalez. So other teams clearly had him higher than 35, where the MLB ranked him. He goes to the Rays. We'll definitely take a look at him. There goes Martin Ordonez. We did know a little bit about him. He looks like a bust, at least to us. Oh, and Mark Humphreys just went to the Guardians. He was my favorite pick for second, especially since we didn't get a pitcher here in the first. He is gone, so we'll have to keep an eye on how he turns out. So now we're looking at James Ingebrigtsen, Rob Carpenter, and I think Dave Williams will probably be my lean here. He looks very much like a can't miss prospect, kind of almost like a Walmart brand Ben Carmona. Sean Morton actually goes to Kansas City at 31. Abraham McMahon goes. He's a guy I had on my board, was potentially eyeing if he fell in the second round. Looks to be pretty solid. Daryl Littleton finally goes off the board. He dropped for us after immediately becoming our number 1 guy. After one more week of scouting, he fell all the way to our rank 26. I'd be interested to see what his potential and overall ends up being. We are officially on the clock, so we have 4 minutes to make our decision. So I think that obviously we could take Dennison. We just took a center fielder. That feels dumb. And again, I am scared of him. James Ingebrigtsen is a guy we have been looking at the entire year. Could be potentially pretty solid. Robert Carpenter, another guy. But the thing about Carpenter and Ingebrigtsen, they're both not ranked on the MLB board. So there's a good chance that other teams have found them, but there's also a chance that they fall a little bit further. While with Dave Williams, he almost certainly will not be available at our next pick, which I believe is pick number 80. That is correct. So with that in mind, I am going to take Dave Williams here. I think he is a surefire hit. I would be absolutely shocked if he is bad. Dave Williams, you are now an Angel. Welcome to the team. And now we advance even a little bit faster. We're going to sim to our next pick, see who is still available. And both of those guys that I was looking for have fallen off of our board. Ingebrigtsen actually only went a couple picks later. And then somewhere in the mix, we lost the other pitcher we liked as well. We only have a minute for this pick, so it's a lot faster. A guy I like here maybe is Brian Julio. He is a third baseman, one of the few third basemen I actually like. There's the closing pitcher, Jason Emerson, but he's not ranked. So I think we can get him a little bit later. There's Raymond Coe, but he is a late round pick. There's Reggie Jenkins. So I think we're going to go with the third baseman, Brian Julio. I wanted a third baseman. He's pretty average at everything, but maybe he'll be pretty good. I'm not feeling great about this draft class so far, but welcome Brian Julio to the team. All right, so now we are on to pick 110. So we're getting to the late stages of this draft. We did lose one of our guys. There's Raymond Coe, a catcher prospect. We have 2 more picks after this. I just want to see if there's anyone still available that we have scouted other than the guys on our board. Jason Emerson is who I want here, and he's at the top of our board, so he will be automatically selected. And yeah, there's really not much else in terms of guys that we scouted. So we're just going to take Jason Emerson, the closing pitcher here. I think that this is a pretty obvious hit as well. Maybe a little earlier than I would have wanted to do that. And we're on to pick 140. We still have Reggie Jenkins available. And I think I might take a risk here on a guy, Guillermo Nava. He is a 19-year-old left-handed pitcher. And yeah, we don't have anyone left that we have fully scouted. So we're going to draft Guillermo Guillermo here, and hopefully that works out for the best. Get one more starting pitcher in this class. And now we will advance one last time. Reggie Jenkins is still available, so I am going to draft him with what is the final pick of our first ever draft. And we'll get to see these guys at the end of the episode and how they turned out. So that is the end of the first year player draft. So now back to simulating. We've got an end of a series here against Arizona, and why not jump in immediately after the draft? Zach Neto to the plate. He has been slumping big time in the last about 3 weeks or so. 3-3 tie here in Anaheim. The Diamondbacks looking to get just one win in this series. Neto, a pitch right down the middle, hits it back up the middle. Fielded by the center fielder, but that's going to score a couple runs. First pitch swinging for Zach Neto, and it pays off in 2 runs coming across. And as a reminder, Mike Trout is now back as well. And that run support from Neto was enough to give the Halos the victory. So they will exit with a W, a sweep of a pretty good team in the Arizona Diamondbacks. And that game pushes us into the All-Star break. And I might focus more on this in the future, but I just don't think it's that big of a deal for the Angels right now. And by the way, for a little while now, I've had the trade frequency sliders set to 0 after a couple of dumb trades happened. I think a good number of trades will happen with it at just middle, but I'm going to bump it up 1 and we'll see how things go for the CPU. Hopefully they don't just make the most horrendous trades you've ever seen. The trade logic was supposed to be improved this year, but based on things I've seen, that's just not the case. Sim through the All-Star game. The NL has defeated the AL, surprisingly, and we will sim through the Futures game as well. Joe Adell now no longer injured, so this changes things. Joe Adell was not playing well, but now that he is back, I think that he probably slots into right field. Trout takes over as DH. Now that Adell is back, that means that David Dahl's services are no longer needed. I don't think it's going to let me move him to AAA. Yeah, because he has 5 years of service time, I have to designate him for assignment. So, and then I think Adell just kind of becomes the everyday backup. I think Moniak is still just going to be the center fielder. We could start Adell in right field, but that means that Soler is the odd man out. But if we do decide to trade Soler, that is probably what will happen. Adell will slot into right, Mickey Moniak in center, Taylor Ward in left, and then Trout as the DH. Since coming back, by the way, Trout only a couple games, but he's had a couple hits, so that's good. And now today is the first day to sign some of our draft picks. So Kevin Vasquez, 38%. It's going to take some talking to get Vasquez a bit more interested. Dave Williams, however, just wants to be on the team. Bro is so excited. We're just going to submit the offer, and he has decided to sign. So the first official signing in the series will be the starting pitcher, Dave Williams. Guillermo Nava, absolutely reached on him. We'll see if it works out. He was Angels draft rank 60, but he also didn't have any scouting at all, so he could just completely suck. Hopefully that's not the case. He does decline, but that's fine. Jason Emerson, a closing pitcher. He'll be just turned into a regular reliever, probably. We will submit an offer for him, and he has decided to sign. Brian Julio, the third baseman, also a pick that hopefully doesn't come back to bite me. Send him an offer, and he decides to sign. I forgot how short he is. And then there are 3 guys left. So we could leave it like this and have just a little bit of motivation coming for Vasquez and Jenkins, or I believe if we just remove Nava, we actually get more motivation. And I'm way more interested in making sure that we get Vasquez than I am ensuring we get Nava. So we're going to leave it like this. We do need to make sure that Jenkins moves up in motivation, but the extra 2% I think will be helpful. Has to be over 50% in order to even offer them a contract, if you didn't know. So now a series against Philadelphia, a 0-6 loss. 45-52 are the Angels. So a win in game 2 against Philadelphia, and now more draft pick signing. We will just try again on Guillermo. We're going to offer him the exact same amount. He has declined again. So all we're going to do is the same thing. We're just going to keep removing him, allow these guys to get more motivation because he's not on the board, and just keep offering him. Rubber match against the Phillies. And it looks like we're going to step into this one. Bottom of the 10th. Ben Joyce on the mound looking to protect this 1-run lead. 10-9 for the Angels. High scoring game here. As he faces JT Realmuto, and he looks at strike 1. And he looks at the slider in there. Broke into the zone, and it froze Realmuto. 1 gone for Joyce. Nice slider. So the 1-2 pitch on its way from Joyce. And he gives at that sinker. Sean Newell will toss to Joyce. It's actually a close play at first. Slow bouncer in the infield, but that is out number 2. So it is a 1v1 essentially. Ben Joyce versus Brandon Marsh. If he can get Marsh out, the inning will end, and the Halos will get a victory. Start with a slider, and he is painting with that thing right now. And of course, that low hundreds fastball, 102 on the radar that time. The 0-2 pitch to Marsh. Swings and misses at the fastball, and I think Ben Joyce has proven that he can be the closer going forward. The Angels get a win against the Phillies here on the road. Trout in this game, by the way, 2 hits, 3 RBIs, hopefully back to his old self, returning from injury. Rengifo with 4 hits. We lose the opener versus the Mets, and we get to sign draft picks again. Again, we will offer Guillermo the same contract, and he continues to decline. And we still cannot offer Kevin Vasquez, though we can next week. So we're stepping into game number 2 here. It's Connor Brogdon, the first time we're going to get to see him so far on the channel. He's facing Juan Soto. Runner on first, runner on second for Brogdon, and he misses right down the middle against one of the best hitters in the game. 0-2 to Soto. This is well struck. Horrible reaction from Jorge Soler. This is absolutely going to tie the game up, and that's why we don't like having Soler out there in the field. Swing and a miss on the circle change. So Brogdon does give up the lead, but gets through the inning. But ultimately, the Mets would go on to win a walk-off home run from Brandon Nimmo. We give up walk-off home runs a little too often, huh? Are we going to get swept by the Mets? No, 14-2. What did the offense manage to do in this one? Trout with a couple hits, 3 more RBIs. Moniak with 2 hits, 3 more RBIs. Kevin Newman with 3 hits. Shawnuel with a couple. Trout with a couple. Soler with 1. Ohapi with 3. 4 for Moncada, who is cooking all of a sudden. Taylor Ward has his average back up to a 281. A couple hits in this one. Goodness. Another day, time to sign some more draft picks. We could finally offer a contract to Kevin Vasquez. He wants 9.9 million. I'll give you 10.06. He has declined for now. We still have a lot of time though. Nothing really to worry about. We'll try Guillermo again. I'll bump this up 1 to 457K. His bonus demand is only 286, but he does accept the bump up. So Guillermo Nava, have no idea if you're good or not, but hopefully you are. So now a series versus the Mariners at home, and another situation to test out Ben Joyce. And of course, the man he faces here in the top of the 9th is Julio Rodriguez. It is 4-4. Joyce is just trying to maintain the tie at this point. But passed ball potentially. No, Hoppy guns down the man at third. So there's an out basically for free. Ben Joyce obviously did that on purpose. But now you got to get past Julio Rodriguez, who has been one of the best hitters in baseball this season. Looking for an MVP potentially this year. Joyce has him looking at the 103 fastball. Joyce will go to his strikeout pitch. It's the slider, and that is right on the corner. Julio fouls it off. Now Joyce back to the fastball, and it was right down the middle. Julio could have crushed that. It's a little too fast, I guess, as he pops it harmlessly to Ohapi, and we're going to look to walk it off in the bottom of the 9th. And the Angels will walk it off as Taylor Ward hits an RBI double. And we win 5-4. Ben Joyce gets credit for a W here. Rengifo 4 for 5. This offense suddenly playing pretty well. Rengifo, I think in particular, is just absolutely on fire. Moncada as well, continuing to play well. Trout has also brought his average up to a 245. So as we approach the deadline, we're 49-54. We're 15 games back in the AL West. So, I mean, obviously there's no chance there. In the wild card, we're 4 games back. So there is still technically a chance here. And with Trout back, Adele back, the offense seems to be firing on all cylinders suddenly. And it's making me want to rethink the sort of mini blow up, but I still think that that decision is for the best. I think we're just going to linger around 500 the entire year, finish like 80-82, and miss the playoffs if we keep the current roster. I'd rather have a lot less wins, trade away some pieces, get some more money available, get some prospects in, and go into next year with more hope in our hearts. Another day, another chance to sign Kevin Vasquez, and he does finally agree to the 10.1 million signing bonus. So hopefully Kevin Vasquez is the player we think he is and not an absolute bust. And now we just wait for Reggie Jenkins. Speaking of busts, he could be absolutely miserable, praying that that potential is high. So I think it is time to make some trades. Trade deadline is at the very end of the month. So it is about that time. I think the big three that we can look to trade away that might actually give us some relatively valuable prospects in return are Yusei Kikuchi. He becomes a really good starter on a lot of teams. Jorge Soler, one of the most obvious ones, doesn't really fit with the team anymore now that Trout is DHing. Need a better fielder out there in right. And then also Taylor Ward, who is an 81 overall and having a career year. Now, I will say Taylor Ward has one more year of team control, and the way he's improving, only the 5 years of MLB service, I actually don't think it would be a horrendous idea to keep Taylor Ward. He's playing really well for us. This is probably the best year of his career, or at least close to it. And he's a decent fielder. I wish he was a little faster, but you know, you win some, you lose some. But I also think that because of all these things, he is potentially going to get us the biggest name prospect if we were to trade him. Now, I've gone through and written down all of the teams I would call buyers at this deadline. So essentially, I just went through the standings, and any team that was like at least a little bit above 500 or very close in the wild card race, I am considering a buyer. So like the Royals are kind of like the bottom end of the buyers, as well as the Orioles, the Blue Jays. But the interesting thing about the AL East is that everyone's within 4 games. So any of these teams could win the division. The Yankees have just won 5 straight. The Blue Jays have just lost 5 straight. So I consider all of these teams buyers, honestly, because I think that any of them could win the division and make the playoffs that way. And then all of them are basically still in the wild card hunt regardless. After I wrote down every team, I went through using those 3, Kikuchi, Soler, and Ward, and determined which team would be improved day one by having that player on the roster. So let's start with Jorge Soler. I very specifically looked for DH needy teams with the DH that was like a 70 overall. That included the Red Sox, the Rays, the Blue Jays, the Diamondbacks, the Padres, and the Mets. So here is the trade I am deciding to make with Jorge Soler. We're shipping him off to the Blue Jays, along with a second base prospect, Errol Vera. Obviously, our top second base prospect is Christian Moore. They're the same age, not that worried about losing Vera, but Blue Jays could use a prospect at second base, and Vera could be decent. We are going to be getting Adam Kloffenstein, let me know how it's pronounced, who is pitching incredibly well at AA right now. He's 24, so he's a little bit older to be a 62 overall still, but I still think could be pretty good for us in a couple seasons. We're getting a third baseman in 20-year-old Cutter Coffee, who I think is a great pickup. He's playing really well at AA right now. He's quite young. With the C potential, he could definitely become at worst like a platoon guy. If it's on the higher end of C, he could maybe even be a starter. And then they're also throwing in a 24-year-old relief pitcher with C potential, Eric Pardinho. They get Jorge Soler, and I think that this would be a move that the Blue Jays might kind of consider just to appease Vladimir Guerrero, who they are of course going to be trying to re-sign. The Blue Jays accept, and the deal is done. So the first deal is complete. Now we're going to see if we can't trade Kikuchi. So the list of teams I have that would immediately be helped out by him: Tigers, Guardians, Royals, Red Sox, Rays, O's, Blue Jays, Yankees, Diamondbacks, Padres, Reds, and Mets. He would immediately make an impact on their rotation. We're going to be sending Yusei Kikuchi to the Guardians, and we're going to be getting Chase DeLauter and Jake Fox in return. Now, wisely, the Guardians think that they're giving up a little bit too much, so we do have to send something back in return. I honestly think that this is pretty fair. They get Kikuchi, a good starting pitcher to help them for this year and the next couple, and they have the budget for it, and they're definitely one of the better teams in baseball, absolutely trying to make a World Series push. So I'm just going to throw in some trash to make it work. They're interested if we just throw in any random relief pitcher. I think that this is pretty fair. It's a little expensive on the side of the Guardians, but they have the budget for it. And with the roster they have right now, they're definitely going to be pushing to make the World Series within probably the next 5 years. So I think them moving on from DeLauter to get some help in their rotation makes sense. And then we're picking up Jake Fox as well to be a utility piece going forward. I think this helps both teams. As always, in the comments, let me know if you think anything is unfair. I promise you, I do quite a bit of research to try to determine something that is at least relatively fair. The trade is done. We're also going to be making this trade with the Phillies. They will gain a closing pitcher, Kenley Jansen, who is regressing, yes, but also having an absolutely outstanding season. One of his best in years, 2.23 ERA, 1.1 whip. And while they do have a closer that is better than him, outside of their sort of top 3 bullpen arms, they're not great in the bullpen in general. So I think Kenley could absolutely be a top end arm for them in the bullpen and help them try to overcome the Braves, who are currently ahead of them by about 4.5 games. We in return are getting Brian Rincon. Right now, he can only play shortstop, but I figure that second base can be coached into him. Not to mention that he could just be a good trade piece in the future if we're looking to trade prospects for prospects, or if we're in a position where we need to buy and we need to sell some prospects. So that trade has been completed. And after a look around, I think I have decided to keep Taylor Ward for this season. He's got one more year of team control, so we can be guaranteed to bring him back. He's still improving and he's having an incredible year. What's not to say he can't help this team a couple years down the line even still. He's been one of the best players for us this season. It's probably Neto 1 and him at 2 in terms of who's been the best player on the Angels this year. So it doesn't hurt to keep him, I think, for this season and then trade him potentially next year instead. And honestly, there's a lot of trade partners for Taylor Ward, but also it would just be hard to replace him. We don't really have anybody that's ready to be called up and play left field. Maybe Chase DeLauder, who we just acquired, but still, I think we keep Taylor Ward. With Ward staying, Trout gets to DH, Adele will slide to right field, Moniak stays in center, and then Taylor Ward will be our left fielder. And then honestly, once David Dahl's DFA goes through, we will probably just bring him back up to the MLB level. This also means that Ben Joyce will officially become the new closer, and I hope that is the case for a very, very long time. He is improving significantly this season. The K per 9 going up is very exciting, and he has a lot of team control left. Two other guys we could consider trading: Luis Rengifo, Yoan Moncada. They are both free agents after this season, and they're both in their late 20s at this point. I kind of like Rengifo because he can play other positions. Moncada can only play third. Rengifo could slide over to third. We could call up Moore if we feel like Christian Moore is ready. So I think I might actually want to potentially extend Luis Rengifo for, like, I don't know, I'd be willing to give him probably 4 years. Although when I go to the contract extension screen, he wants a decent chunk of change for the future. So I have been mulling over these trades and these contract extensions for a really long time. I'm talking, I had a good night's sleep last night. I literally slept on it, and now I'm back to it the next day, trying to figure out what I want to do with this team. Rengifo, I am still a little undecided on, but I think we're going to keep him for the rest of the season. He is asking for a lot of money for a player of his caliber, and he might very well be worth it. I mean, a team that's rebuilding does always need veterans. He's 28. He has the B potential. He's still improving. He's still getting better as a player. He's having a pretty good season. He obviously was incredible in 2024 before getting injured, and he had been good in 23 and 22 and is continuing to be good. And I would absolutely give Rengifo about a 4-year, maybe, somewhere $8 to $10 million contract. But if we're doing 4 years, he wants $12.1 million. And if you sort by players that are somewhat similarly rated, somewhat similarly aged, he's asking for more than Nico Horner, who's making $11.7 million a year, is a year younger and a decent bit better. And a lot of these guys are better than him, and they're being paid less. I know some of that is due to the team control that is remaining. Bregman is an outlier here. He is similarly rated, a little bit older and making a ton of money. But here's Ozzy Albies, also 28, and honestly a similar caliber of player if you look at the attributes. He's only making about $5 million a year for the next 3. And I know that's because the Braves tend to hand out these contracts when these players are really, really young and lock them up for cheaper for a longer time, which is something the Angels obviously did not do with Rengifo. And here is a guy I think is a fantastic comparison. Jonathan India, who just signed with the Royals in the offseason, longtime Cincinnati Red, same potential, same age, about a year less of MLB service. He still has another year of team control. He's making $4.4 million. Hard to know what he's going to be asking for. Maybe it's going to be similar, but it's just hard to want to give Rengifo $12 million a year where he is right now. We did free up a ton of money. It's not that I'm unwilling to do about a 4-year contract for that much. And I do think he could be a serviceable second baseman for the entirety of the series, basically. But I think we'll wait to offer him a contract in the offseason. We could trade him right now. He'd be a decent trade piece. He'd get us, maybe 1 or 2 okay prospects. But I'd really like to keep him. And I'd like to see if he's willing to bring that number down a little bit in the offseason. Now, a guy we are trading, I think, is Yoan Moncada. And he's in an interesting spot because he starts here in LA as an Angel because we suck. But if we look at a contending team, really any contending team, there's not really one that could use him to start as a third baseman. So we're primarily looking at a team that needs a backup third baseman. Remember that Moncada can only play third. He cannot play other infield positions. So that limits our trade targets greatly, but I think the team that might make the most sense is the Brewers. Now, the Brewers are in a weird spot. They currently lead the NL Central. They're 4 games up on the Reds. So they're definitely contending this year, but the NL Central is also just a generally weak division. There's no team here that I think is truly a World Series contender. But if we look at the Brewers lineup, they have Joseph Ortiz starting at third, and he's a good quality third baseman, good fielder, not the strongest arm in the world perhaps, but definitely a good enough third baseman. And he's pretty young with good potential. They don't want to move on from him, obviously. But then look at their bench. The bench for the Brewers is absolutely horrible. Only one guy over 70 overall. They have Andrew Monasterio as their primary backup infielder, plays second, third, and short. And they have Miguel Rojas starting at shortstop, and he is regressing like crazy. So if we were to trade Moncada to the Brewers, he could, one, just be a backup third baseman to Ortiz. But I think what is most likely is that the Brewers slide Ortiz into short, where he's a really good fielder, and then they can plug Moncada into third, which allows Rojas to go to the bench, where he will continue to regress, but can play several infield positions along with Monasterio. So I think Moncada actually helps this Brewers team out quite a bit in terms of their infield in order to shift things around and make sure that they can win that division. Now, I understand that we're essentially trading them what would at best be like a spot starting third baseman. So I'm not going to rip off the Brewers. I had my eye on a couple of players that I think would be decent trade candidates here. The first one is Davy Garcia. He's 25 years old. He has some MLB experience, and he is a loner. He's going to be a true free agent after this season, so we'd have to give him some type of contract. I doubt he'll ask for very much at 55 overall, but he's one of those players a little bit older with high potential and just hasn't quite reached that yet, who could work out in a new environment, but could also be a bust. And then another guy like kind of in a similar vein is Eric Brown Jr. So we won't be taking any of the Brewers' top prospects, but some guys that I think could easily be part of the future for the Angels if they can continue to develop. So the Brewers get a loner third baseman to help them in a playoff push. We get a couple of guys that are a little bit older prospects, but still have decent potential that maybe the Brewers would be ready to move off of. I think this is a trade that is good for both teams, helps us salary wise, helps us blow up the team even a little bit further. We get a couple prospects. They get a solid third baseman. So we will be sending Moncada to the Brewers, and I think that is where our trades will end. Now, we could bring up Christian Moore to start at second in our infield, shift Rengifo over to third, but Christian was playing poorly at AAA, so we sent him down to AA, and he's just continued to play poorly. So I'm not overly fond of that idea. I think what's actually going to happen here is that Kevin Newman will be playing third. He is a pretty good fielder. Wish his arm was a little bit stronger to be playing third, but it's not too bad. So he will begin starting over at third base. Rengifo will stay at second. He's not a great fielder, so second base makes a little bit more sense for him despite having the stronger arm. And then of course we have to decide what we are doing about our backup infielder, and I think that the answer is right in front of us. It's Scott Kingery. He's a 69 overall. He can play basically every infield position except first base. He can play the entire outfield. Not a great fielder, not a great bat, but just a solid utility guy to have in the lineup as a backup. So after the little mini blow up, here is how the lineup is going to look for the rest of this season. Ideally, of course, hopefully nobody gets injured. Rengifo, second base, Shonwell at first, Neto at short, and Kevin Newman at third. Trout will be DHing. In the outfield, it's Joe Adell, Mickey Moniak, and Taylor Ward. And then, of course, behind the plate is Logan O'Hoppe. Team's definitely a little bit worse. We'll probably win a little bit less, but that's kind of what we want here for the rest of the season. Like I said, it's a mini blow up. We didn't completely destroy the team yet, but we took down some of the bricks to start putting new ones on the top. We're renovating the building rather than tearing it down. And I think this gives you a little bit more to be excited about. Now we have a few more prospects in the system that are a bit more exciting that could help this team in the future. And plus, we're just about to find out how good our draft class was. So we've got Caden Dana, Ricardo Perez, who I have moved to catcher. He actually is a pretty good catcher due to his fielding ability. He also plays first base. I think starting next season, he will probably just straight up be the backup to O'Hoppe and could also play backup for Shonwell. Chase DeLauder, I think, is one of our best pickups. He could be ready as soon as next season. And Cutter Coffee as well looks pretty good. Let me know what you think of all the trades. trades. Were any of them super unfair? I tried to be pretty fair with it, but at the same time, it's a video game and MLB The Show's trade logic is so bad. And there's only so much you can really do. Also, new pitching rotation. Kyle Hendricks will be plugged in. I was planning on releasing him, but we can keep him for the rest of the year. He's only going to continue to regress, but honestly, at this point, the more games he can kind of lose for us, the better, so that maybe we get a better draft pick. And then we did bring up a new arm in the bullpen, that is Brock Burke. And Ben Joyce is officially the closer of the future, and I think the future is super bright for Ben Joyce. I did extend his contract through the last 2 years of his renewal period, and then he will be on arbitration. But I think that after these next 2 years, we're just going to give him a very long-term contract. So it'll be Hendricks, Soriano, Detmers, Anderson, and Kahanowicz as the starting pitchers. Hopefully, Soriano continues to play super well. His potential did go up by exactly 1 point. It was 78. It is now 79, and he is having an incredible season. It is also worth mentioning that he does have a little bit of team control left, 3 more years of arbitration, but he wants a big time contract. If his potential were in the B's, I'd probably give him that big time contract, but right now he's basically at his peak. But I mean, he's peaking very well. He's been elite this season. So now we continue through the month of July. And by the way, David Dahl has been placed on waivers. I have to assume he's going to pass through them without much issue. Once he does, he'll be called back up to the MLB team just to be a backup outfielder for the rest of the year. So now the team is inarguably worse, but I think also inarguably better set up for the future. So let's see if we can continue to beat Seattle, and we'll jump into this one. Zach Neto up to the plate, bottom of the 8th, 1 runner out, down by a run against the Mariners. And while, of course, at this point, we kind of do want the Angels to start losing a little bit more, we're still going to try our hardest to win every game. Absolutely. No doubt about that. We don't tank. Neto, opposite field. Nobody's tracking that one down. As it bounces off the wall, it's going to score at least 1. The runner's waved around from third, and safe at the plate is Joe Adell, and Zach Neto is taking the lead for the Angels in the bottom of the 8th with 1 swing of the bat, and he's up to a 10-game hit streak once again. The second double-digit hit streak on the year for Zach Neto. Opposite field power, bringing a couple runners around. We're not done, though. Luis Rengifo staying on the team, looking for a large contract extension. He's looking to bring Neto around, extend the lead for the Halos as we look to take a 2-0 lead in this 4-game set. Opposite field for Rengifo this time. That is well struck, but chased down by the left fielder. Neto thinks about taking off, decides better of it. Kevin Newman now suddenly thrust into a starting role. The starting third baseman for likely the rest of this season. We'll see what happens in the offseason. So that misses outside. Once this stretch of the season is over, we're going to pick up the pace a lot, probably finish out the year in maybe even just 1 more episode after this one. As a lot of the beginning of the year is scouting, of course, trade deadline, but then after that, it's mostly just playing baseball games and seeing what this team is made of the rest of the way down the stretch. And now that we're kind of blowing it up, not looking to make a playoff push, it's mostly just going to be losing, but who knows? Maybe these changes have increased the chemistry on the team, and for some reason, we're just way better with the changes we've made. Remains to be seen. Perhaps Trout starts playing at an elite level once again as Newman will draw the walk. And speaking of Mike Trout, there he is. He's brought his average back up to a 246 since coming back from this injury. Maybe the couple months break is a reset he needed. I believe his average was in the low 230s, possibly the 220s. Now it's nearly up to 250, a 246 for Michael. Trout high and deep to left. Is that one over the fence? It is. Mike Trout with one that just barely gets over that low left field wall. It's a 3-run shot for the superstar. Mike Trout is 14th on the season, picking up with the homers where he left off. Led the team for a long time despite being injured with 11. 3 more since he's come back. 9-5 lead for the Angels. So a 5-run 8th inning is enough for the win for the Angels as they beat the Mariners again. We've kind of had the Mariners number this season, I feel like. We typically just lose every time to the Rangers, but the other top dog in the West, we consistently beat the Seattle Mariners. Take a look at the box score. Mickey Moniak with 3 hits. His average is still in the 270s. Renjifo's got his average in the 270s. Newman able to get a hit. Trout with 2 hits. Of course, we saw the 3 RBI home run. Taylor Ward a couple hits. Nolan Schanuel still struggling a little bit. 3 wins in a row for the Angels. That last game against Seattle was our first one with the new look roster. And it's another day to sign draft picks, but we're still a little far away from being able to sign Reggie Jenkins. We are slowly learning more about him, though. It does appear that his overall is not going to be all the way down at 18. Could still be as low as 26, but the potential number is also climbing, and the 99 has stayed the same. He's 18, so even if he's like a 40-something overall, if he has a potential somewhere in the 90s, we're perfectly okay with that. It's going to probably take him like 6 years to work his way to the majors, but with that kind of potential at such a young age, that's what you want with a late round pick. So we end up splitting the series with the Mariners 2-2 as they dominate us in the final game of the series 1-8, and now a series against the Rangers, who have consistently beaten us this year. In fact, we went 0 for 4 against them earlier in the month. But it is another day to sign draft picks, and it's our first attempt at signing Reggie Jenkins. He is the only man left, and he signs immediately. So Reggie, welcome to the team. I hope you're worthwhile. And that does it for signing draft picks. So now we will simulate through the rest of this month. We'll figure out if those draft picks were any good. I decided to skip that last situation, but now the Angels have a chance to close one out against the Rangers. It's Ben Joyce. He's walked both of these guys on, and now he's got to get himself out of this. Ben Joyce, the new closer, ever since the trade of Kenley Jansen happened. Maybe not quite as composed as Jansen would be in such a situation. Time to prove yourself, Ben. That 100-mile-per-hour fastball helping him. He's got an 0-2 count to Adolis Garcia, but then he hits him in the elbow, losing control of the fastball. Garcia, not injured, will head to first. Now it's bases loaded for Marcus Semien. Hopefully he hasn't lost confidence in that fastball. Semien going to try to get the runner to home, and we get the play done. Well played by Nolan Schanuel, saving the run and saving the save for Ben Joyce. That was a really good bunt. 2 gone. Only 1 man left to get out. It's Jonah Heim. Crushes this one foul. And he pops this one over the head of Newman, and the save has officially been blown. We get this one back into the infield. It is 3-2 Rangers. Jonah Heim just barely getting that one over the head of Kevin Newman. Looked like Newman maybe had time to back up and jump, but he just stood there. So now Joyce just looking to limit the damage. He faces Wyatt Langford. Save already blown, but don't want to give up any more runs. Still want to give the Angels a chance in the bottom of the 9th to walk it off, hopefully. Langford pops this one up, and it's pretty deep to left, but no problem for Ward as it's almost right to him. Blown save for Ben Joyce. Let's see if the Angels can walk it off. And the answer is no. They cannot walk it off. The Rangers end up with a victory due to the blown save, but we'd expect no less. So it's the trade deadline. We'll look around and see what happened around the league. There was nothing that popped up, which makes me think that no huge trades happened. But I do have that trade slider up. As no, it was a super quiet trade deadline for the rest of the league. We're really the only team that made any moves, despite trades still being enabled and the slider even being turned up. Trade frequency was slightly increased. I guess maybe I should have maxed it out. But honestly, I'm a little bit relieved that no big trades happened, because the trade logic this year, despite them saying it was improved, actually I think seems to be a little bit worse. So hopefully there's a patch coming out soon that will have that fixed, and maybe next season the trade deadline will be more interesting and not actually have the weirdest trades happen. But after we advance through this game against the White Sox, we should be able to see our draft picks and any other draft picks around the MLB as we lose 12-6 against the White Sox. So here we go. It's a true 78 potential for Kevin Vasquez. So on the lower end, definitely not what I would have loved to see. And he also starts at a 55 overall at 21 years old. I feel like this is kind of a bust. He's fast. He's a good fielder. His arm sucks. He has a long ways to go with the bat, and he's 21. Oh, That's a miss for sure. But hey, the pick Dave Williams looks to be pretty good. High stamina, needs to work on the K per 9, the hit per 9. But I think this was a decent pick. He's a 65 overall. He has beat potential. I then went after Brian Julio, hoping he wouldn't stab me in the back. He's a terrible fielder, really low overall, but has good potential. It's a true 89, but a long ways to go for Brian Julio before he is anywhere near ready for the majors. Jason Emerson, I think, was a good pick. It's hard to miss on closing pitchers a lot of the time. They're typically just pretty good. And honestly, he is almost good enough to play for us like next season out of the bullpen, maybe like 1 or 2 years maximum at the bullpen in Salt Lake City with the Bees probably, but he's pretty close to ready, I think. Guillermo Nava, a guy that I probably reached on a little bit, but I mean, he has high C potential as a starting pitcher. 79 will play in the majors. He's 19 and he's a 62 overall out the gate. That home run per 9 is horrible, so definitely need to get that up, but he actually doesn't look like too bad of a player. I don't feel bad about that pick that late in the draft. And then I knew that Reggie Jenkins was just going to have great potential. 93 potential, highest potential pick of the class. And you know what? For being a 46 overall, I actually don't hate his ratings. Obviously, he's got a long way to go, but he's 18. He's got time. So maybe not the best draft class ever, but I also don't think it's horrible. Like, as much as Kevin Vasquez is maybe a bust for being the number 2 overall pick, I don't think he's that much of a bust of a player, if that makes sense. He'll play in the majors for sure at a 78 potential. He just might not be ready until he's like 26, and the bat may never really be there, but he'll always be a pretty fast guy that can steal, and he should have decent fielding ability despite the weak arm. He actually, with that weaker arm, is probably more of a corner outfielder than he is a center fielder. But if we can get his plate discipline, for example, way up with that speed and that steal rating, he could be a big time base stealer that draws a ton of walks. So we'll see if we can mold him into the player we want him to be. And now it's time to look around the majors, see who we missed out on. The A's got a really good first baseman, Jason Ikeda, 91 potential, 67 overall, 18-year-old. Absolutely elite first baseman prospect. Already great contact and power against righties. The clutch and the bunting is incredible. His plate vision is good. He's not a good fielder, but he plays first, so he doesn't really need to be. That is an elite pick from the A's. Somebody we're definitely going to see a lot of in this series, I am sure. The Mariners got Sergio Castillo. So this is the guy that I could have taken, and probably looking at it should have taken with the number 2 overall pick. 84 actual potential, and he's starting at a 72 overall. He could have started for us next season. Home run per 9 is really bad, but the Mariners get another great pitcher. The Rangers got Brian By, a right fielder with 87 potential, so they get even better. They also had a pretty good closing pitcher as their second pick, Thomas Ellis, and then the rest of it's pretty mid to even maybe bad down the board. The Braves ended up getting Carlos Palacios, who is a guy that I had on my board to potentially take late, but he was already gone by the end. But he is an A potential, 90 potential center fielder with a long ways to go before he's major league ready, but a good pickup. One guy I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for is Todd Dennison, because we definitely want to see if I absolutely whiffed by not drafting him. I was scared of him. I just didn't think he would actually be better than Vasquez, but Vasquez a little bit of a letdown, so definitely could be. Chad Beck was a guy that I kind of liked, and the Phillies ended up with him. 87 true potential for him. He's a 65 overall out the gate as a 23-year-old. He probably needs a couple more years to develop, but could be really good in the future. They also got a right fielder, Luke Peck, with 88 actual potential. Oh, and you guys might remember Christopher Edney. He was a guy I said had really good starting overall, but terrible potential. 69 true potential, 73 starting overall. He's a terrible fielder. He's pretty fast, and he has a decent bat. So he is actually immediately going to be helpful for this team, probably. Could come off the bench, but he's going to start regressing instantly. Bro peaked in high school, literally at age 18. Here's Ben Carmona. It's so obvious why the Nats took him. 88 actual potential. I wanted him so bad. Starts at a 65 overall, which is actually a little bit lower than maybe I was expecting, but probably only about a year or two away from being major league ready. Has really high velo, good stamina, needs to work on the walks per 9, and the pitching clutch and the control are really the major things that he's missing right now, but such a good pick. 88 actual potential. They also got James Ingebrigtsen, who has 85 actual potential, 59 overall at age 18. So 2 really good starting pitchers for the Nats. They also ended up with Kent Williams, who looks like he might be pretty good, and then they got a bunch of relief pitchers, a full pitcher class for the Nationals. Tyrone Martin looks like he's probably a pretty good reliever. Moving on to the Cubbies, I am so glad I did not draft Raymond Coe. I was scouting him quite a bit, and he seemed like a decent catcher, but absolutely a bust. 67 actual potential, 44 overall. This guy has probably never seen the majors. In fact, this is just a horrible draft class for the Cubs in general. Really bad. Here's Daryl Littleton. He actually is not a bad pick at all, I don't think. 78 true potential. I mean, that's a guy that can play in the majors. He has a decent starting overall at 60. He is so fast. He's not a great fielder. He's got good clutch already and decent contact. So I definitely don't think Daryl Littleton was a bad pickup at all for the Reds. And I wouldn't have been disappointed taking him in the second round. It's definitely just not like that high end of a pick either. Like, it's one you just feel okay about. They also got Henry Mora, a really good catcher prospect. It looks like great fielder. Arm is not there. The accuracy's bad. The strength is bad. So people are going to run on him all the time unless he can improve that arm, but looks like a really good prospect. The Brewers missed terribly on their first pick. A first baseman with a 59 actual potential. His overall is 64. It is already higher than his potential. And they got Todd Dennison, and I was right. His actual potential is 72. Is that horrible? No, but it's not great. He's super fast. He's not a great fielder with a not great arm. His contact ratings suck. Like, this is a low-end backup platoon type of outfielder in the MLB, but I'm so glad I passed on him. Something just didn't feel right. The ratings just didn't add up to me to being our #1 prospect. And so I'm going to continue to trust my gut on that. Not a great class in general for the Brew Crew. Oh my God, a really good draft class for the Pirates. They get 3 guys in a row, 93, 92, 89 actual potential. They also got left fielder Mike Jones, who's already a 62, and these ratings are really good. In fact, I think I like Mike Jones more than I like my first overall pick in Kevin Vasquez. Better fielder, better arm, good speed, and great contact with good vision discipline and okay clutch right out the gate. That is a great pickup. Mike Jones of the Pirates. Absolute steal. Rockies got a couple hits with Lee Pike, a right fielder, 86 potential. They also got a relief pitcher, Patrick Clark. Paul Ortega even looks solid. First 4 picks, honestly, are really pretty good for the Rockies. Carmine Molina was a guy I was definitely considering. Looks like he could be a solid pitcher in the future. And I mean, you love to see this. Not great class at all for the Dodgers. Tobias Townsend is probably going to be okay. Outside of that, couple misses. Some mid to low 70s guys, a 65. Padres got a really good catcher prospect, Matt Albrecht. The Giants got Frank Zapata, center fielder with 90 potential. Now, long ways to go for Frank, but you got to be happy about a 90 potential guy on your team. The O's get Brian Gentry, really good starting pitcher prospect, high 80s in potential. They also got Mauricio Chavez. This is a guy I also liked. And they got Rob Carpenter, a not ranked guy that I liked as well. And he looks pretty good. 83 true potential. It's a great draft class for the Orioles, at least at the top end. Bad class, really bad class for the Red Sox. Octavio Scruggs, their best player. He's probably okay. Failed to sign their second round pick, and then mid to low 70s and even to the 60s for their last picks. The Yankees get Chu Chen. He looks to be okay, and then the rest of it is just absolute trash. I should have taken Robert Gonzalez. 67 starting overall, 92 actual potential. I gotta trust my gut. It was between him and Vasquez for me. Vasquez felt like the better player available. Absolutely, he was not. Gonzalez is way better than Kevin Vasquez. Would have definitely been the pick in hindsight, but hey, hindsight is 2020. This is such a good draft class for the Tampa Bay Rays. Blue Jays get a solid starting pitcher, Eric Valdez, as their first pick. Definitely not a bad pick at all. Eduardo Carrara looks really good as a first baseman. They drafted 3 third basemen in a row. Are they trying to tell Vladdy something? Are you guys moving off of Vladdy? White Sox hit on Russell Mayfield. Looks to be a really solid player. And then the rest of it is just kind of mid. This is why I liked Mark Humphreys. The Guardians end up with Humphreys. He quickly became one of my favorites in the class. 97 stamina. Needs to work on the per 9 attributes, but 93 actual potential, man. Why does the game do this to me? I was hoping to snag him in the second, but the Guardians took him late in the first round, had no chance. Okay, draft class in general for the Guardians. They also got Jason DeVarco, 94 actual potential third baseman. He is 23 with only a 46 overall, and he's got a long ways to go. Guy probably will not debut in the majors until he's like in his late 20s. Pretty bad draft class for the Royals, at least probably below average. Have one guy in the 80s, that's Walter Coe, starts at a 59 overall relief pitcher. I didn't even notice, but this is Sean Morton. He's a third baseman I liked quite a bit early on. Kind of fell down my board once I found out that his potential was 70 to 85 scouted. Actual potential being a 69, so not a good player. And then we're back to us. And I think in the grand scheme of things, this is a really good draft class. There's no absolute bust here. I know I called Kevin Vasquez a bust, but I think I'm saying that because he probably probably was not worth the second overall pick, but he's absolutely a decent baseball player, and I think he has a future on the team. Definitely can be excited about Dave Williams, Brian Julio, and Jason Emerson. Dave Williams in particular, I think, is very close to being major league ready. One thing of note with him, though, his durability is 66. I believe he was injured when we drafted him, so something to keep in mind. He's not the most durable guy. Brian Julio is also not overly durable, 63. I think Jason Emerson is going to be a great reliever for us. Could call him up as soon as next season. I don't know. It's definitely not a bad class. I think it could have gone better for the more immediate future, if that makes sense. But generally, I think we made some pretty solid picks. But anyway, that is going to do it for this episode. It's a weird one. I have no idea how long or short this episode is going to be. There wasn't a lot of gameplay because obviously it's a lot of, signing draft picks, doing the draft and whatnot. And then weird episode for sure. I don't know if we'll finish out the whole season in the next episode, but we'll definitely get very close at the very least and get ready for an upcoming offseason. There's really not much else to talk about going forward. It's just a matter of seeing how the team performs the rest of the year. But thank you guys so much for watching. Shout out as always to the channel members. And if you find yourself coming back on the regular and you are already subscribed, go ahead and hit that sub button for me. It does help me out a lot. And I will see you guys in the next episode where we'll see if the Angels get worse after all of those trades or if somehow they get better.